Imagine you're my interviewer and you ask me, Jeff, tell me about a time you failed. And I start my answer by telling you my definition of a failure is overpromising and under-delivering. And just like that, I've placed myself in a position of strength to answer this interview question that trips up many candidates. But did you see exactly what I did? In this video, I'm gonna answer that and more by first sharing 3 advanced tips for the behavioral interview question, tell me about a time you failed, or tell me about a mistake you made, then share a real sample answer from when I first joined the product marketing team. Let's get started. Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Jeff, and we're all about practical career interview and productivity tips. So if you're a working professional, consider subscribing for more actionable content. In the next 30 seconds, I'm gonna go over the common basic advice you'll hear everywhere since they are important, before going on to what I like to call the pro tips. Right off the bat, interviewers like to ask, tell me about a time you failed, to assess how you respond to failure. They're trying to gauge your self-awareness, determination, and willingness to improve. So first, prepare a specific example to show your answer is authentic. Then, in that example, take responsibility, don't blame others to show your professional maturity, and finally, avoid talking about a huge failure since you don't want to raise any red flags and come off as a liability. Basic advice done. Now, onto the good stuff. Pro tip number 1. Define failure in your own words. If you think back to the beginning of this video, I started my answer by telling you my definition of a failure. Overpromising on a project and then under-delivering. This is not a trick. I simply took control of the interview question by stating what failure means to me up front. By doing so, me and you, the interviewer, we're now aligned on what failure means. And this helps me achieve several things. First, it takes all the ambiguity out of the equation. Failure obviously means different things to different people, and once you determine what failure means in this specific instance, the interviewer will most likely follow your lead. This then allows you to set the right expectations from the very beginning. This is what failure means, this is what I did, and this is why I failed. Once failure is defined, your story no longer needs to be an obvious failure. It just has to be whatever you define failure to be. So ironically, by stating what failure means to you, you set yourself up for success. Let me know by clicking the thumbs up if you found this first pro tip helpful. If you didn't find this useful at all, feel free to click the dislike button twice to let me know just how dissatisfied you are. Pro tip number 2. Focus on one thing that went wrong. The reason so many people trip up on this tell me about a time you failed question is because they're looking for a situation in which everything went wrong. When in reality, you only need one thing to go wrong for your answer to work. Better yet, you want to share an experience that shows a one-time mistake or error, rather than a pattern or repeating problem. Let's say you're a social media manager for a retail company, and your primary responsibility is to manage the various social media accounts the brand is active on. In this particular example, you want to shy away from failures like making typos that ended up damaging your employer's brand image, since not being detail-oriented is arguably a repeating issue. Instead, you might want to explain how the core issue was you agreed to so many things that you were completely overwhelmed, and that you had to learn how to say no effectively. Pro tip number 3. Always end your answer with a learning rather than a result. One of the key reasons interviewers ask, tell me about a mistake you made, is to see whether or not you have learned the lesson. Because if you end up making the same mistake over and over, it will drive any hiring manager crazy. Put another way, are you able to apply that new learning following your failure in a similar situation down the line? And this is where the CARL method comes in. It stands for context, action, results, and learnings. And for those of you who haven't seen my video on why CARL is in many situations stronger than the STAR method, I'll link that down below. To make sure the interviewer understands you fully grasp the key takeaway from your failure, it's best to point to a specific situation where you're able to apply the same concepts, thus showing the same mistake is unlikely to happen again. Without further ado, here's a sample answer about a real failure that happened when I first joined the product marketing team. Okay, Jeff, could you please tell me about a time you failed? Sure, so for me, I define failure as overpromising on a given project and then under-delivering because I'm someone who's proud of the work that I produce. In this particular instance, I had just joined the marketing team and was responsible for running my first ever online event. Being the data geek that I am, I wanted to analyze the post-event statistics and share learnings with our team. These would include things like attendance rate, average viewer duration, and qualitative feedback from our viewers. I had run smaller events before, just nothing of this scale, so I was familiar with how the raw data would be outputted. Usually I could just go into the backend of the system and then download all the information in Excel format. It just so happened we had a large regional meeting scheduled for that Thursday. And since this meeting only occurred on a monthly basis, I was eager to share my learnings from my Tuesday event. And so I asked the agency to send me the data by Wednesday morning. I'd work on it Wednesday afternoon, so I'd be good to go by Thursday. However, when I received the file, I realized the information was not in the correct format because we had switched service providers. While I knew about the switch, I'd incorrectly assumed the data output would still be the same. As a result, I couldn't write the new formulas and clean the data in time by Thursday, and so I had to ping the meeting organizer to explain the situation. While she was able to find a replacement for my session, I was really disappointed in myself because I clearly overpromised and underdelivered in this case, and there was really no excuse. I ended up writing an email of apology to the senior stakeholders of this meeting, explaining the situation, taking full responsibility, and asking for an opportunity to present again the following month. My biggest takeaway from this experience is to never make assumptions about data, especially when there has been a new change. I have since applied this learning to all my campaigns, and I've actually caught a few issues before they became a real problem. Like when we migrated to a new website and made sure that all the tracking metrics were consistent before going live. And there you have it, 3 pro tips and a sample answer to prepare for Tell Me About a Time You Failed. If you're interviewing right now, make sure to check out my playlist on the comment interview questions. See you on the next video, and in the meantime, have a great one.